In the twilight years of Middle-earth, when the great wars had ended and the kingdoms of men stood tall in the ruins of ancient glory, there came a ship, not just any vessel, but a ship of myth and memory, its prow gilded like the rising sun, its timbers pale as moonlit birch, gliding silently from the gray havens toward the west. Tolkien's poem, The Last Ship, speaks of this enigmatic voyage, hinting at a moment lost in the mist between history and dream. Swans swam ahead like heralds of peace, their wings barely stirring the glassy surface of the sea. Aboard were figures crowned in silver light, elven lords whose names are whispered but never confirmed. Their departure was not witnessed by multitudes, nor marked by heralds or horns, but cloaked in solemn reverence, a final breath of the firstborn slipping beyond the world of men. This ship was more than wood and sail. It was a memory set adrift, a fading echo of the elder days carried westward on the tide. Who truly sailed aboard it? Perhaps Celeborn, the silent shadow of Galadriel's memory. Perhaps Thranduil, king beneath the trees, whose halls once echoed with the laughter of elvenkind. And Cirdan, ageless and wise, builder of ships and bearer of foresight. Perhaps he too stepped aboard, knowing no more vessels would be needed. With that final journey, a door closed. The magic of the elves, their songs, their sorrow, their starlit beauty, slipped from the world like dew at dawn. The last ship is not merely an end. It is a haunting symbol of all that slips beyond reach, of things glimpsed in dreams and never fully grasped again. It is not just the end of an age, but the farewell of enchantment itself. They stood beneath the stars one final time, three lords of a fading world, crowned not merely by silver and gold, but by memory and myth. In the hush before dawn, when starlight still lingered on the sea, they boarded the last ship, its sails whispering with ancient winds. Though Tolkien never named them outright, legend allows us to see their faces in the mist. Celeborn, lord of Lothlorien, tall and quiet as the Malorn trees. Thranduil, proud king of Erin Losgalen, whose crown once gleamed beneath the green boughs of Mirkwood. And Cirdan, the eternal shipwright, whose hands shaped the very vessel that would carry them away from the mortal shores. Each bore the weight of ages, of forests that no longer sang, of towers that no longer shone. They were the last great elves of Middle-earth, not by accident, but by purpose, lingering until the very end. Perhaps they waited for peace to settle fully over the realm of men. Perhaps they waited for the last echoes of the ring's burden to fade. Or perhaps they simply hesitated, reluctant to turn their backs on the lands they had loved for so long. No banners marked their departure. No trumpets heralded their passing. Just the soft sigh of the sea and the cry of gulls overhead. As their ship vanished into the glowing horizon, they became more than kings. They became part of the legend, slipping into the fabric of forgotten things. And thus, their final act was not conquest, nor farewell, but surrender, a quiet yielding to the inevitable turning of the world. They left behind no monuments, only wonder. Their crowns now rest not on brows, but in the dreams of those who remember starlight, silence, and the sea. When King Elisar laid down his life in the 120th year of the Fourth Age, the world did not shudder, nor did the skies weep, but something deeper stirred. It was as if the land itself inhaled a final breath of the old world, and then fell silent. His death was not just the end of a great king. It was the extinguishing of the last bright flame linking the world of men to the fading light of the Eldar. Aragorn, once Estel, was a bridge between mortal and immortal, between hope and history. With his passing, that bridge collapsed into mist. In his final hour, he turned to Arwen and offered her a choice, one that bore the weight of two worlds: to seek the havens, to follow the last ship if it still remained, or to linger and meet the doom of men. His words hinted at a lingering possibility, that Cirdan might yet remain, that a ship might still await. But we, like Arwen, are left uncertain. No records mark another departure. No chronicles confirm Cirdan's fate. What remains is silence. And in that silence, a great loneliness. Arwen's grief became not only personal, but mythic, an emblem of the elves' waning, of love that cannot be preserved even in memory. The Golden Age had truly passed, not with war or flame, but with the soft closing of a door no longer watched. As Aragorn's tomb was sealed, so too was the Age of Elves, sealed within the hearts of men and the earth they left behind. His death echoed beyond Gondor's marble halls, reverberating through the forests of Lorien, across the quiet shores of Lindon, and into the westward winds where the stars once sang. An age had ended, and the world would never again be as it was. She wandered alone through the golden woods of Lothlorien, now hushed and hollow, where once the air had shimmered with elven song. Arwen Undamil, the even star of her people, had given up her immortality for love, but in the wake of Aragorn's death, what remained was silence. The Malorn trees stood still as sentinels of memory, their leaves no longer whispering the laughter of Galadriel's court. The paths she walked were empty, not just of people, but of presence. No birds sang, no voices called. Only the soft sound of her own footsteps pressing into ancient earth. She was not merely a widow, nor only a queen without a king. She was the last shadow of a vanished age, draped in sorrow, carrying within her the remnants of elven kind. Her choice to stay had been born of devotion, but her end came as a surrender to grief. In the heart of Kara's Galadhon, beneath faded canopies and starlit gloom, she lay down not to sleep, but to pass beyond the circles of the world. No pyre was lit, no tomb was carved. Only the forest knew and kept her secret. In that quiet place where time itself seemed to hold its breath, Arwen became a legend, not carved in stone, but etched into the very soul of the land. Her passing was a lament not sung aloud, but felt in every place where light once lingered and now dims. The choice she made, the fate she embraced, was the final note in a song too long and sorrowful for mortal tongues. With her, the last gleam of the Eldar faded from Middle-earth. No ship would come, no star would rise, and so the woods grew still and the world turned, gently forgetting as elvenkind slipped deeper into shadow and story. In the soft twilight of the Fourth Age, long after the echoes of war had stilled and the white tree bloomed once more in Gondor, Legolas stood upon the shores of Anduin, his gaze fixed westward. The fellowship had scattered to their fates, and the world of elves was withdrawing like the tide from a fading shore. Yet Legolas remained a while, lingering in Ithilien, breathing life into the land with his people, sowing seeds of peace in a world scarred by shadow. But in his heart stirred a longing too deep for words, the sea longing awakened by the cries of gulls and the distant pull of the west. It was not just the sea that called him, but memory. The memory of a mortal king whose friendship had bridged kindreds long divided, and whose death in the 120th year of the Fourth Age marked the closing of a bond no time could replace. So, Legolas built a ship, not of splendor, but of sorrow and remembrance. Gray and graceful, it slipped quietly into the current, bearing him and his unlikely companion, Gimli, across the wide waters. It was a voyage spoken of only in whispers, a footnote in history, yet rich with mythic resonance. For in that ship sailed the last echo of the fellowship's spirit, and perhaps the final glimpse of true friendship between elf and dwarf. No song marked their departure, but the story lived on, in the rustling leaves of Ithilien, in the starlight on the sea, in the hearts of those who still remember what once was. With each pull of the oar, Legolas moved not just toward Valinor, but away from a world that had grown quiet. And in his leaving, Middle-earth grew quieter still as one more thread of wonder slipped softly into legend. Not all elves answer the call of the sea. Some chose, instead, to remain, to linger in the lands where they had danced beneath moonlight, sung beside silver streams, and fought beside kings now long gone. These were not the lords of renown or shipwrights of Lindon, but quiet souls, bound by love to the forests and hills of Middle-earth. They did not defy the westward summons out of pride, nor out of fear, but from a quiet devotion to the soil beneath their feet. And so they faded, not in death, but in essence. Time did not claim them as it does men. It wore them down like wind over stone, until they became no more than whispers in the trees, flickers in the corner of one's eye. Galadriel once warned that those who linger would become rustic folk of dell and cave, slowly forgotten even by the world they loved. Their beauty dulled, their memories stretched thin. They slipped quietly into obscurity, neither immortal nor mortal, just diminished. Yet there is something achingly noble in their fading. They chose love over legacy, memory over myth. In the rustling of the beach leaves and the glint of starlight on quiet ponds, perhaps their presence endures. They are the unseen guardians of forgotten paths, the last echoes of an age that once shimmered with light. Their end was not marked by ships or songs, but by the slow turning of seasons. No chronicles record their names, and yet Middle-earth would be less without them. These are the elves who remained, and in doing so, gave the world a final gift. Not a farewell, but a gentle lingering, a soft breath in the twilight, before the silence of men took hold. Long before the ships, before the havens, before the tales of Beleriand and Numenor were even whispered, there came a choice beneath the stars, a choice that would divide the elves forever. When Orome, the great hunter of the Vala, found the elves newly awakened beside Quivionen, he beckoned them westward toward Valinor, to dwell in the undying lands under the light of the two trees. Many followed, drawn by the promise of splendor, but some did not. These were the Avari, the unwilling, the quiet ones, who looked into the west and turned away. Why they chose to stay remains wrapped in mystery. Perhaps it was fear of the unknown. Perhaps it was a shadow of Melkor's lies already at work. Or perhaps, most hauntingly, it was love for the starlit lands of their birth, unmarred by power, unclaimed by kings. They remained behind, not in defiance, but in devotion to the land that first cradled them. Through ages uncounted, the Avari wandered the wild places of Middle-earth, their languages lost, their names unrecorded. Some merged with other kindreds, their heritage blurred into the mists of time. Others vanished entirely, leaving behind only the rustle of leaves and the haunting sense that something ancient lingers just beyond the veil of sight. There the elves untouched by Valinor's glow, keepers not of memory, but of origin. And though they may never have sung beside the light of the trees, they knew the heartbeat of the world before even the moon rose. In their silent persistence, the Avari remind us of an older truth, that not all who fade are forgotten, and not all who remain are lost. Somewhere in the deep places of Middle-earth, their spirit endures, quiet, unseen, and eternal. There are places in Middle-earth where silence speaks louder than memory, where the wind carries not song, but absence. Lindon, once the seaward realm of Cirdan the shipwright, stood at the edge of the world, where ships kissed the foam and vanished into legend. It was the final threshold, the last breath of the elven lands. But in the years after the great departures, Lindon grew still. The laughter of the Eldar faded from its shores, replaced by gull cries and sighing tides. The harbors remained, but the sails were furled for the last time. And further east, nestled among the healing hills, lay Ithilien, a land reclaimed from darkness, where Legolas and his kin once brought light and life anew. They planted gardens, sang beneath fresh canopies, and for a brief while it seemed elvendom might take root once more. But even here, the echo of the sea was never far. The sea-longing pulsed beneath the surface, quiet and inexorable. When Legolas departed, he left no record of his people's fate. Did they follow him west? Or did they remain, choosing green glades over gray waters? The answer lies not in words, but in stillness. Ithilien, like Linden, became a realm of echoes. The elves did not vanish in fire or war. They slipped away like morning mist, leaving behind beauty that felt like memory. Their silence was not abandonment, but a benediction. And so, when one walks beneath Ithilien's leafy boughs or along Linden's lonely shores, one might still feel it, a hush too ancient for men to name, a presence that is not seen but felt. It is the hush of elves who love the world enough to let it go, and whose absence lingers like perfume in an empty hall. The tale of the elves does not end with a single ship or a final farewell. It slips instead into the quiet places, into the folds of forest glades, the sigh of forgotten streams, and the distant shimmer of stars that once guided their path. There was no grand curtain drawn, no last light extinguished. Their passing was not a moment, but a gradual retreat, like twilight easing into night, too subtle to mark, too vast to hold. Even as the last great lords departed, Celeborn, Thranduil, Cirdan, even as Legolas sailed his solitary ship and Arwen laid herself down in the hush of Lorien, there were still those who lingered. Some faded slowly, unseen by men. Others remained in spirit, etched into the soul of the land itself. The elves did not vanish. They became legend. Their voices may no longer echo in halls, but they echo in memory, in tales told by firelight, in songs whose origins are long lost. And that, perhaps, is the truest form of immortality. Tolkien never gives us a clear, final line. The story of the elves dissolves into mist, leaving the reader with a sense that something beautiful has passed just beyond reach. That is the magic of it. The end is never truly final, because memory keeps it alive. And maybe, in the rustling of leaves or the hush before dawn, one might still feel their presence, the last breath of starlight in a mortal world. In the end, the elves did not simply leave. They left something behind, a silence that sings, a loss that glows, a world forever touched by their grace. Their ending is not a disappearance. It is a transformation into wonder. And in that wonder, they remain. The story of the elves is not a tale of abrupt endings, but of quiet partings, fading footsteps, and lingering echoes. From the last ship that sailed into legend, to the silent watchers who chose to remain, each moment carries the weight of beauty slipping beyond reach. Their kings departed, their songs grew still, but their memory endures, in woods and waters, in starlight and story. The elves did not vanish. They became the breath between the lines, the wonder beneath the world. And though their time has passed, their presence is forever woven into the soul of Middle-earth.